Let the record reflect that we reconvene with all members present. Please note that Ben Wolkowitz will be joining us by phone, and Austria Bailey is absent excused. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing after the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for two that we lost in the last 2 weeks. Thomas Dambola, employee of the Madison Chatham Joint Meeting Sewage Treatment Plant, who died on July 2nd. He leaves behind his wife Beatrice, 4 children and 9 grandchildren. And Ralph Dookie Sandello, who died on July 5th. He established Sandello's Plumbing and Heating with his father here in Madison in 1957. It is now with the 3rd generation under his son Joe. Ralph is survived by his wife Camille. In addition to his son Joe, his other sons Ralph, who is a former Madison DPW employee, and son Stephen, 3 daughters Cheryl, Rosemary, and Kathleen, along with 6 grandchildren. Ralph also served our country in the Navy during the Korean War. So let's take a moment to remember the lives of Thomas Dambola and Ralph Sandello. Thank you. You may have a motion for the executive minutes of June 25th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
And they were corrected from the original distribution. All in favor?
Aye.
A motion for the regular minutes of June 25th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections, or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we got the aye from Ben there?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Welcome all. We have a break in the heat, at least for now, so it's greatly appreciated. I want to thank Pat Rowe for covering the last council meeting while I was on vacation, and also for the moment of silence in honor of my father. I want to thank all my friends and residents of Madison that have reached out in the last 2 weeks with their thoughts and prayers for my father. As many have heard, he leaves behind 11 children. I'm the middle one. 31 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren, which is a legacy in itself. But he also left all of us, if I quickly do the math, 51, a life full of memories that not only that he created, but captured on the 8mm movies that he followed us with his camera, the thousands of printed pictures and slides. I will truly miss him. He was a great father, so thank you all. And shifting, the employee for the month of July is John Rafter of the Madison Police Department for his commitment and dedication as the OEM coordinator and for his hard work documenting the March 2018 storm-related expenses and data required for us to recoup funds from FEMA. It is very difficult work, but very important that we get reimbursement when we get hit with a major storm. So I would like to invite up our champion Madison High School boys golf team. Please step forward, while our coach, Matthew Millishap.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it'll be.
What we'd like to do is, I just need to grab this folder right here. Part of our council meetings is to recognize accomplishments, and so right here in front of us we have quite an accomplishment. Is it the first championship for Madison High School golf? This many. Okay, so that's and Not only did the team win championships, but NJ.com recognized our coach as the Coach of the Year. So, well done. Just to follow the theme of my father, and one of my father's quotes is, what makes golf so difficult, it's the only sport where you're hitting a ball that's not moving. And it sounds like it should be so simple, but you guys know it's far different than that. So you want to read this through, and I'll allow the coach to say a few words. The mayor and council hereby congratulate the members of the Madison High School boys golf team for achievement in winning the North 1 and 2 Group 2 Sectional Group 2 State Championship at the Tournament of Champions and Northwest Jersey Athletic Conference Championship. These accomplishments required extraordinary effort, outstanding teamwork, dedication, and perseverance. We commend the team members for their commitment in reaching these goals, and we recognize Coach Matthew Melshop for leadership and training and coaching. The dedication and achievement of these outstanding athletes have brought great pride to the Borough of Madison. In testimony of appreciation, I hereunto set the official seal of the Borough of Madison. Lucas Artiglair. Congratulations. Nick Frank is not here. Nick Taylor is not here. It is summertime after all, and it's a great time to be out somewhere playing golf. Sam Kotkin. Logan Sable. Stay up here. Yep. Gabe Schlicksup. And Ryan Salquist.
Thank you. It's great to be recognized like this, and we really we weren't sure what it was going to be like and what the environment would be like, but this is terrific to get these guys up here and to give them certificates and to give our team a nod. It was an interesting year, starting out with some crazy snow almost all through the first few months and practically into April there. But when it was all said and done, we may have played a few less matches than we normally do, but these guys did great in their tournaments, and kind of the lasting image for me will just be being the last bus to leave a lot of these tournaments, because the guys had won it and they wanted to stick around. They wanted to take pictures of each other and goof around with the trophy and things like that. And, lo and behold, the bus driver, we would get to the bus and probably wondering where we were, or if we had walked home or something. We had been there for so long. But, that was great. And, it was really enjoyable to have such a great group of young men, with us on the team this year. And, behind all of them, literally sitting behind them before, are the families. And, our sport is one where the parents need to sort of put out a lot of time and effort to help the kids. We don't practice in the gym of the high school or anything like that. It's getting them to the driving ranges and to the golf courses. So we really appreciate what the families have done. I have my cohort back there, Paige Diamond, the girls team's coach. I want to thank her for coming out tonight. And lastly, I'll just wrap up with this is a great community. I've taught here for completed 20 years now, and Madison is, it's so much. It's not just sports. The sports programs are great here, but there's so much going on, and somebody can really find their niche, whether it's in music or in the arts, robotics, anything like that. Fortunately for these guys, they picked up golf clubs, and they found their niche with golf, but it's just a real privilege to be able to wear the M. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Coach. Well done. All right, thank you. Congratulations.
Who's going to wear the green jacket?
That's the Masters. Nope, got to get the rest.
And of course, you are welcome to stay as we go on to the rest of the council agenda, but we won't take it personally if you walk out quietly. Okay, reports from committees. Health, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A recent comprehensive metabolic profile blood test was conducted for Madison and the residents of all our contracting communities. There was a good response for the screenings, which were held in Madison and Springfield. Next, with the arrival of hot weather and summer picnics, safe food handling practices are encouraged for all residents. Maintaining stable food temperatures, that's 135 degrees or higher for hot food, and 41 degrees or colder for cold food, will help avoid foodborne illnesses that occur more frequently during summer months. Third, Madison Walks is a walking program that was kicked off on June 21st with a walking route that began at the junior school and ended at our farmers market. Participants learn tips to be safe and savvy pedestrians and are given a reflective wristband and a reusable grocery bag. Residents are encouraged to increase their physical activity while enjoying the sights of Madison. Please contact Lindsay Pruitt you can look her email address up on Rosenet, or call 973-418-3747 for more information about additional walks. And finally, extreme summer temperatures affect pets as well as people, especially the elderly and the young. Please reminders about staying safe during periods of excessive heat and humidity are available at rosenet.org under health. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Public Works and Engineering and Finance for Austria, if you have that. And
Yes,
Ms.
I do.
Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor. The engineering report from Bob Vogel. The 2018 road construction work, Cefelli & Sons has advanced curb and drainage improvements and intends to complete this work this week. Once the curb and drainage improvements are complete, the final milling, paving, and signage and striping will be scheduled for completion this month. Public Service Electric and Gas Company has initiated another gas main replacement on Lewis Drive, Crestwood Avenue, Lawrence Drive. PSE&G also submitted a schedule for installing a new gas main in Greenwood Avenue, which is likely to start this week. PSE&G will be able to complete a new gas main on Elmer Street last week and assured the new paving work will not be disturbed by the emergency gas work in the future. Time will tell. See that. Milling and paving work on Kings Road and Elmer Street by Tilcon, New York, will be scheduled as soon as Public Service makes progress on Greenwood Avenue project and completes the gas main connections on Elmer Street. DPW, as always, they're always busy. The mechanics have repaired a bucket loader. They're repairing police, electric, DPW vehicles, and the sidewalk sweeper. The Parks Department is continuing with the preparing the recreational fields and watering the flower baskets, and of course, maintaining all the everything around town that needs to be trimmed or weeded. Roads Department, they are still delivering mulch to residents. There's some still available. They're paving inlets, and both the Sewer Department and the Roads Department are paving inlets and potholes and sewer ditches, and they're really removing all the trees and the stumps as well. Sewer Department had to handle emergency flood issues due to the heavy rainstorm that we had, investigated various residential sewage blockage calls, and are continuing with their day-to-day operations with miscellaneous markouts, etc. The construction department, per usual, are extremely busy. They actually had, there's 1,678 phone calls in and out just in the month of June. They issued 162 permits. They updated 41 permits. They did 693 inspections. 28 certificates of occupancy were issued, and certificates of approvals, 483. and Oprah requests were 53. So the construction fees that were collected last month was $138,077. So they had a very busy month. This is from the Finance Department, from the tax collector. As you may have heard, certain school districts, including Madison, are slated to receive increased state aid as a result of the newly adopted state budget. Since the Department of Education has yet to finalize this process, the state is going to delay the certification of information to county tax boards. Because of this, our tax bills will be delayed. Tax bills will be mailed out as soon as possible after the information is received. As in the past years, these bills will include the final payments for the third and fourth quarter of this year and preliminary payments for the first and second quarter of next year. So if you're going away for the summer and you want to pay your taxes, you can go on Rosenet. You can pay your property taxes online at any time from wherever you are, and just hit the online bill tab on Rosenet and make sure you have your bank account and routing number and your property lot and block. If this option does not work for you, the tax collector can calculate an estimated bill that you could pay before you leave town. So if there's any problems, call the tax collector's office at 593-3056. Thank you.
Thank you. And Public Safety, Mr. Wolkowitz.
Thank you, Mayor. Beginning with the police department, a little background. There's an organization called SafeWise that examines safety from all different angles, including equipment, locations, vehicles, etc. They have a website under that name, SafeWise. They recently published the results of an investigation of theirs as to the safest cities to raise a child in 2018. Number 19 out of 30 was us. Madison was number 19 out of the 30 top cities. And we were number 1 in first. So our congratulations to our police department and our chief. A terrific job, well done. As for the fire department, I'd like to give you June totals on some of their calls up to year to date. Under general alarms, they had 26 in June, 109 year to date. They had 17 spill alarms, 111 They had 27 investigations, 157 year to date, 53 medicals, and 276 medicals year to date. They also managed 57 fire prevention inspections and 20 smoke inspections on properties that were rebuilt. On a different note, the fire department is very much in need of volunteer fire fight. Our volunteer ranks are at an all-time low, so I would encourage anyone who has interest to go to their website, which is MadisonFDFireDepartment.com. There's plenty of information there on what this all entails and how to become a volunteer firefighter. Thank you.
Thank you. And Community Affairs, Ms. Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. It's the middle of the summer, and anybody who can is either at the community pool or the Jersey Shore or Martha's Vineyard. But some things are continuing to happen. Yesterday, the community garden participated in Morris County's Open Gardens program, and Morris County does this once a year. They open the community gardens for people to come and see what they look like. Mostly they're visited by other community garden people, but it was a chance to show off our garden. From recreation, we are moving along towards trying to improve and make safer the Little League fields. The Little League fields have been a problem for a while. They have poor drainage because they are clay. The clay builds up at the edge of the grass, creating a lip that can either be tripped on or a ball can hit and come back at a child trying to hit it. So a group of parents have put themselves forward, and we have been getting bids, and it's my hope that we'll be able to start remediating these fields this fall. Someone pointed out to me that the ground that these fields are built on is the exact composition of the ground at Yankee Stadium. And I said, well, then why isn't Aaron Judge falling over all the time? It's because they have a staff of 20 maintaining one field every single day. From the DDC, we're going to hear from Lisa Ellers on update on the urbanomics study. And finally, today is National Ice Cream Day. So I suggest when we're done, we all reconvene at McCool's for an ice cream cone.
Sounds like a fine idea. Thank you.
Buying?
I know I
And utilities, Mr. Hoover.
The electric department, we'll start with the electric department. On July 8th at about 7:14 in the morning, received notification that there was a power outage on the east end of Madison that affected about 100 people. A little tiny squirrel got after something up there. And at 12:47, it was all back. Everybody was safe. The electric department dug a pipe at Kings Road for substation for camera installation. And at 19 Greenwood Avenue, they started building a service riser primary for a new commercial building. At Kings Road substation, pulled out all overgrown bushes and installed a new bed of bushes in front of the building. They started paint prep on the new staircase at the Kings Road substation, and on Lathrop Avenue added 2 new transformers to increase residential capacity and balance usage. For the water department, 13 meter installations, meter head or outside registers were installed, frozen meters replaced, installing radio transmitters for remote water meter reading, on work orders for outside registers, meter replacements, and new construction meter installations. Another drinking water fountain and water faucet is being installed at the Summerhill Park on the Ridgedale Avenue side of the park. With the help of a homeowner walking by and hearing water running in a catch basin on Woodland Road, a potential water leak is under investigation near Beverly Road. Detours may be set up while they're searching for the leak. That's all.
Thank you. Communications and petitions.
None received, Mayor.
Okay, this is our first of 2 invitations for discussion. This is limited to items on our agenda discussion list or resolutions. If you want to comment on ordinances, the ordinances for hearing, you'll have a chance during the hearing. And ordinances for introduction, you'll have a chance during the second invitation for discussion. And so you are aware of the resolutions, not only for potential comment, but when we get to consent agenda, these are the resolutions on the consent tonight. 205, resolution adopting revised deferred compensation program with Lincoln National Life Insurance Company and Lincoln Financial Group. Resolution 206, authorizing lease of 2 copiers for the purchasing department and the building department. And that's through New Jersey Cooperative Pricing. 207, resolution renewing liquor license for Headwater Spirits LLC, which is Shanghai Jazz. Resolution 208, resolution authorizing use of competitive contracting for retaining consulting to perform the home energy audits, which has been very successful in Madison. Resolution 209, resolution establishing reserve of $66,663 for expansion of operation and maintenance of the Madison-Chatham joint meeting. And this is income coming from sewer connection fees is being reserved only for Madison's share of the cost of improvements to the plant. Resolution 210, which is authorizing release of performance bond for Enterprise Rent-A-Car at 128 Main Street after completion of renovations there. Resolution 211, authorizing contract with Pay to Park mobile parking payment. There'll be discussion with this in the second agenda item, so that will go forward if there's consent. And Resolution 212 is a license application submitted by the Thursday Morning Club for raffles. And 213 is canceling grant balances. This is just a routine process of money left in receivable balances in various grants. And 214 is a resolution adopting the borough's media protection policy in compliance with New Jersey MEL, which is the Municipal Employment Liability. Thank you. Employment Practices Risk Control Program. So those are the resolutions that will be on consent. So you can comment on any of those, or the construction enforcement, which is related to protection of trees during construction, and the municipal parking plan. This is both commuter and downtown. Anyone wishing to comment on those two or any of the resolutions, please step forward, state your name, your address, write the same on the clipboard, and keep your comments. Try to keep them to 3 minutes. I'll give you a 1-minute grace period and close you at 4. Anyone wishing to comment? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we move on to our agenda discussion. Carmela, would you like to introduce the...
Yeah, I'd love to. As liaison to the Shade Tree Management Board, they've noticed over the years that there's been a lot of problems regarding the protection of borough trees on construction sites. So we have regulations and guidance in place to protect those trees, but it was not clear who monitors and enforces those regulations. So we got together on Shade Tree, and there's a lot of really very good, knowledgeable people and who were willing to volunteer and say, okay, we'll agree to monitor the various construction sites for the possible violations. And this will free up the time spent by the staff at Hartley Dodge. If the members of the board see a violation, they will notify the zoning officer, who in turn will take the enforcement action as permitted under the code. This is not for trees on private property. This is just for borough trees, the trees that are near the street in the borough right away. And this is a good sentence to know. We buy these trees, we plant these trees, and we maintain these trees, so we want to protect those trees. So it's just a matter of amending the ordinance that is currently in force and adding one sentence to the borough code to help, which makes reference to the zoning officer who will do the enforcing of that protection.
Okay. Maureen?
2 questions. Will the zoning person let the contractor or homeowner know that if they harm a borough tree, they are going to be sanctioned?
Yeah, part of the whole process, when there's new construction going on, there's guidelines that are given to those people that are doing it. And they know, it's a very intricate situation because of how the trees are planted, and if there's really like big heavy equipment going on them, they destroy the roots and whatever. So they know right from the get-go. Okay, as soon as they apply for a construction permit and whatever, all of that information is given to them. Unfortunately, what happens is that they just do their thing, and so the tree is destroyed. We've had lots of really good conversation at Shade Tree. I think that Shade Tree probably would almost rather, if the tree was going to actually be harmed, is to consider removing it and then maybe moving. Maybe whoever's doing the construction, move it from to a different area or whatever. But it costs us a lot of money. There's 150 trees that go in every single year, and DPW spends a lot of time planting them, so we've got to protect them.
My second question was, okay, this brain of mine lately, but,
Take your time.
when someone put an application in to the zoning board, would the shade tree commission be notified that someone is going to be doing
Yes.
construction, and they can go out and see the condition of the tree and where its roots go before we start anything?
I've always been very impressed about how, this whole application situation starts. Fran Boardman usually gets those applications. It goes to the zoning officer, and then she, in turn, actually will get in touch with shade tree management, historic preservation, and if they need to go to TCC. So I think it's a really good process that we have right now. It's just what happens after.
Now we just have to start enforcing it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? Or Pat, and then we'll check in with Ben in a second.
Sure. Right now, there's nothing that stops the Shade Tree Management Board from checking on work that's being done and referring issues that they see to the borough zoning officer.
No, the problem is we're talking about volunteers here.
I understand
Okay,
that.
they don't have the ability to enforce anything, to enforce the borough code. So we've set up a really good situation. Actually, the assistant engineer will be in charge. Frank Russo will be in charge, because this was a lot on Bob Vogel, with all of his stuff going on. There's a spreadsheet that is actually sent to the assistant zoning officer now, and he in turn will write the letter and do the enforcing. That was the problem. There was no enforcement, so.
Well, but we're not changing the borough code in terms
No.
of who has enforcement authority. That's the same. This is just giving the Shade Tree Management Board.
Yeah, it's just a clarification of who is, the shade tree people will monitor, and advise a borough employee who has the ability to enforce.
Okay. Well, that's what I thought we were doing today, so.
Yeah, that's all it is.
It doesn't
Very
really seem
simple.
to change much, but I'm fine with that.
Okay, Ben, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I mean, certainly from reading it and what I understand to be the case, I have no problem supporting this. So it's something that's probably well overdue.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is ordinance 42, which is listed for introduction. Now we move on to the municipal parking plan. As I mentioned before, we basically have two parts to it. I'm going to just set the table a little bit. The first part is related to commuter parking. For those that are aware right now, the system is we have numbered slot parking positions, and you stuff your $5 bill, or if you end up with 5 singles, you stuff 5 singles into the slot to pay for your spot, and you have the little pusher in there. It's also very difficult on the days that we have surplus permit spots and have run out of the daily spots that they had come inside. They can pay there, and we'll tell them, go ahead, take one of the permit spots that is empty, which is happened very typical on Mondays and Fridays, and certainly quite a bit in the summertime, as opposed to being able to have a process where you can just say, yes, that spot's available, you can pay online. And so you'll be hearing about that. And then as we shift to downtown parking, we're going to be hearing a bit about a common theme that's been happening over the last couple of years and will continue in the coming months and coming years, is the urbanomic study, which was revitalization of our downtown. Today we're talking about the parking downtown, that section of it. We'll hear a little update as to some of the other things that are also happened with the urbanomic study, but what this is a slice of the pie. The council had a full presentation last year And as often happens with consulting studies, you have the study is presented, and then it's handed off to various entities who really get in the weeds and work on it. And so the recommendations get implemented, they may get modified, or they may get discarded altogether. And while the DDC has the lead role in tracking the recommendations, others also have key roles, such as a planning board, who has already implemented some of and made recommendations to this council related to zoning changes. And other committees and the staff will be really the ones in the weeds trying to keep the council from getting poison ivy in those weeds. But it is the council that will hold the ultimate responsibility with the plan. So again, with that in mind, we are seeing the first major slice of the urbanomics pie. There'll be more to come, and we may need to digest this slice a little bit more. And you'll be hearing from Lisa Ellis, and that was one of the first accomplishments from the recommendations was to hire a director of business development, and so Lisa will be, who filled that role, will be coming up here to share the update. And so that is the setting the stage, and let's start with the commuter parking. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm happy to be here to discuss the option of utilizing the M2 Pay fully integrated parking management system. This modern solution will replace our antiquated payment drop boxes, which the mayor had just discussed. This system that we currently have is not only cumbersome and time-consuming for our residents, but it creates a lot of work for my parking enforcement officer, who has to empty these boxes every day, unfold countless amounts of money, create bank slips. So what this system is going to do, our main goal is, first and foremost, it's going to increase the convenience for our commuters, who will now be able to pay for their train ticket from their cell phone. The next phase that we're hoping that's going to help is the efficiency of our parking enforcement. So before we get started, I just want to thank Lieutenant Longo, who spearheaded this program. He did a lot of work along with Corporal Delaval, John Rafter, and Linda Sawyer to get us to this point. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank the Friends of the Madison train station, Mayor Ruckelhaus and Mr. Romano, who I see in the back here, who were critical in developing an RFP for this project. We also have Mr. Joe Orlando from ITS, will also be here to answer any questions that any of you might have. So without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to the man of the hour here, Lieutenant Longo.
I have 3 minutes, right?
Yes, that's right.
I'll try to make this as quickly and straightforward as possible. Again, as the chief said, we're looking to do, our two objectives are to, one, implement technology that basically enhances the productivity of the parking enforcement officer. And also, the second one is the customer. And we're talking about the customer of daily parking, giving them a better avenue to pay for daily parking. When I talk about daily parking, or when we talk about daily parking, there's two spots in the Borough of Madison where you can daily park. Number one is behind the public safety building. Talking $5 a day. There are 77 spaces where you can daily park. The mayor said, and she said, you put $5 in a slot, and that's later emptied daily and deposited. The second one is the Madison train station. This is the Crescent parking lot right opposite the train station on Kings Road. I just want to make this point clear. When we talk about daily parking, one thing in the course of our studies we found is the majority of the daily parking in this lot, for instance, 70-some-odd% is out-of-town residents. So we're talking about daily parking, people paying $5 a day. 70% of the people parking in this lot, about 60 to 70 people parking in this lot is out-of-town residents. So what we're looking to do is implement two kiosks, one at the train station here and one in lot 3, where people can pay by cash, credit card, or debit card. The second part of it would be to institute an app, a phone app, where people can pay on the train or previously, whatever the parameters may call for, but pay for parking via an app. And the way that was set up is it would be a wallet-based system, very similar to the way Easy Pass is done. The major benefit of this is it's one single database for enforcement. And what do I mean by that is the numbered spaces go away, and basically the only thing we care about is that license plate in that lot paid for the day. So if you ask the question, well, can we do the app and not the kiosk? Well, if we are planning on giving the customer the ability to pay for the parking other than the app, Cindy or the parking enforcement officer would still have to balance out the enforcement with two different types of avenues. But in this case, whether you pay at the kiosk, which is the upper left, the app, which is the upper right, everything will be documented on the iPad or Samsung tablet for the enforcement aspect. As I indicated, you're paying by license plate, so it's very. Listen, we went to. I want to thank the Millburn Police Department. Myself, Cindy, we made several trips to Millburn. They utilized both the kiosk and the app. We stood on corners and watched people pay for parking. I wouldn't be going for it if it wasn't something that was very user-friendly. The system's very user-friendly. And once people get into the habit by figuring out they have to pay by license plate and not the space number, the only thing you're doing is typing in your license plate. There's less room for errors every morning, whether it be myself or the chief coming in, parked behind our building. You always see someone running back to their parking space to look at the number on the ground. It's because they're thinking about a million other things, or commute to the city, not necessarily what number spot they park. Now you walk up to the kiosk, or if you're paying via the app on the train, it's done by license plate. We don't have to maintain those number spots on the ground anymore. That goes away. There's no, what else do we have up here? I'm not reading from it, but there's less room for errors. Again, did you put your money in space 82, but you parked in space 84, whatever the case may be. Bottom line is, if your license plate's in the system, you're not getting a ticket. If it is, you're in violation. 29 municipalities in New Jersey currently using this system. Again, Millburn was the one we went to several times. Millburn Morris Township, we went up to Convent. It's the same system. One thing I just want to add too, I downloaded the app. I used the app myself. Went to Millburn. The app is straightforward. It's nice. You could, if you have 4 cars, I don't, but you have 4 cars, you can register your 4 cars, and if you're taking a different car to the lot, whatnot, you can just right arrow and choose a car you're parking for the day. The app interfaces with the kiosk, so whether or not you pay by the kiosk or the app, your license plate, you enter your information, it goes into one enforcement area. You pay from the train. Again, one of my best friends, he takes the train out of Chatham when he works in the city. He would rave about Chatham's system because when he submits his monthly statement back to his company for a reimbursement, he just does it via the app. Right now we have no way of doing that, but that's one benefit, again, to the customer. You could update the vehicle information in the app. The company, and again, the 2 bottom ones have to do with future considerations. We are looking to get our parking enforcement e-ticket solution. We do want to go through the parking app. It's just an easier way of doing it. They are in the final stages of finalizing the e-ticket solution with the New Jersey AOC, which is the Administrative Office of the Courts. It's very difficult here in New Jersey. The other thing is they have an automatic license plate reader, which is what we call in the police department ALPR. It's basically a system that takes a picture of license plate to determine where the violations are. They do have a system. That's not something we'd look to implement right away, but the benefits of the kiosk: it accepts cash, coins, or credit card, debit card. The kiosk will promote the app. I won't get into too much of the benefits. I mean, we have to empty our current boxes every day. If they're filled, people can't pay. I'll be perfectly honest with you. There are people that go there that try to steal. The amount of money that's collected whether or not you're paying by the app or the kiosk, it'll be put on one single or one sole database to determine how much money are we bringing in for parking each year. I mean, technically, we just unlock the bins and bring in a bag of money. If someone gets a hold of that money, we really don't know. This is the chief's favorite too. Or let's just say, for instance, the train station, if someone comes in, leaves at noontime, now someone else pays, well, theoretically, someone put their $5 in, so now that new license plate would have to pay again because they're parking in that spot that was used between maybe 4 a.m. and noon, and now that second car is coming in, and being that they're a new license plate, so those people who are kind of scamming the system, they'll be forced to kind of pay their fair share as well. The app is a free download. I've used it. It's very user-friendly. Getting to some of the fees, there's a 30-cent transaction fee by utilizing the app. The fee can be either charged to the customer or the Borough of Madison. If we roll it in, what some municipalities found is the use of the app increases. As the chief said, our whole goal and our number one mission is to get people to use the app. So that's something I think we would suggest is rolling it in, even if we have to raise the daily fee. Municipality gets funds transferred to the borough. Okay, that money is automatically transferred into the borough accounts. So the big question now is the cost. How much does a kiosk cost? A kiosk costs $10,000, roughly $10,283. We need two. There's the Friends of the Madison train station have agreed to pay for the one at the train station. The one behind the Public Safety Building, we would apply $2,000 of Parking Offense Adjudication Act monies. So the initial cost for the unit itself will be $8,383. The tablet for enforcement, the Friends of the Madison train station committed to purchase that for us, $600. There is an operating cost, just like anything else. The lifespan on these units are 10 to 15 years. The two kiosks talk to the credit card vendors. It's $25 a month for that cellular service fee. We'd be using Verizon because of New Jersey state contracts. The monthly service for the the credit card fee is $55 per month. So you can see to operate both machines would be $13.20 annually. Just to show you quickly, the amount of daily parking through the municipalities surrounding Madison, the average is $7.50. We are the only ones that's not automated. Everyone else is automated and has an app feature. There's some that are, high Chatham, Summit, Short Hills, Milburn, even the Midtown Direct Line, New Providence, Murray Hills, over $7. Again, our suggestion is to observe the 30-cent app fee. Again, the only reason for this is to increase the app usage. We would be absorbing the credit card processing fee. As I indicated before, 75% of the daily parking at the train station are not Madison residents, and 60 to 65% of the daily parking customers in Lot 3 are not Madison residents. With that, I don't want to go on too much longer because I'm sure people are going to have questions. So between myself, the chief, and Joe.
And before I open it up to the council, just one potential suggestion for a revision to the resolution, which may address some of the questions that have come up in the last week, and that would be to add under now therefore be resolved, a new number one, which would be upon completion of a satisfactory review of customer references, contract language, and the finances by the borough administrator. So if this were to go through tonight, it would be qualified on a successful process there. And Pat?
So yeah, you get to the heart of what I was going to say, because before I started asking questions, I was going to preface it by saying I spoke to Ray Cody, our borough administrator, Friday, because I had some questions and concerns, and he proceeded to give me a handful of his. At the time, he did not tell me that he was going to be on vacation this week, so I assumed he would be sitting here tonight. And he also led me to believe that based on what his concerns were, and some of them went into the due diligence of the firm, customer references, et cetera, that he was going to be recommending that this wouldn't even be voted on tonight. So I apologize that I wasn't aware that until over the weekend that he wasn't going to be here. So at this point, given the language the mayor just read, I would accept that if we added that to the resolution, and I would still vote yes, assuming I'm happy with everything else. So couple issues. One that I did raise with Ray is I saw a lot about the application. I didn't see anything about the hardware, the kiosks or anything else. It almost seemed like we were buying a software solution, but not a whole system. Can somebody talk about why none of that was included in any of the information we received? I mean, like the specifics of what it is and what it would look like?
If you want to give yourself a little introduction so we know.
My name is Joe Urlano. I'm with ITS. That's Integrated Technical Systems. We're a firm out of Parsippany, New Jersey.
Okay.
We also have a corporate headquarters in Wallingford, Connecticut. We are the largest reseller for the manufacturer of the kiosk called T2 Systems, and the pay station is called the Loop 2 pay station. We also are the reseller for the M-Pay to Park solution as well, which is the pay by phone, and as Joe was accurately talking about, the pay by phone and enforcement is a singular solution. The pay station actually communicates to a back end host, as does the pay by phone. And ultimately, from the enforcement side, they then are able to communicate through a singular database, as Joe spoke about. And from an enforcement perspective, you would be able to enforce, the pay-by-plate format, either with a tablet that has all of the valid paid plates, or you can even eventually go to an ALPR system that a lot of municipalities and police departments use right now for things like scofflaw and what have you. But this could also be used for parking enforcement. And eventually we can even tie in permits as well. So you could actually have a singular system that would be able to enforce, permits, pay by phone, as well as, pay station, all in one solution. The kiosk itself is called the Loop 2 pay station. It is a kiosk that right now there's about 2,000 of them that we have under our care. We have, and just to give you an example, he showed some of the communities, but some of the communities in and around the area include Red Bank, Long Branch. Summit is putting 30 more this next 2 weeks. They'll have about 77 or so. Cranford, this kiosk actually was also on the Cranford Co-op for 3 years, from 2013 to 2016. The only reason it wasn't renewed is because the state doesn't allow for just you would have to go back out, as opposed you can't just re-up it. Although they wanted to. Ed Davenport, who runs the Cranford Co-op, was very, very pleased with the unit, and we've done very, very well with it. And it's there's a lot of reference sites that we always encourage folks to call. Some of the other towns: Seabright, Seaside Park, Red Bank, like I said, Long Branch, Stone Harbor, Ventnor. We have actually 15 New Jersey Transit facilities and lots that we currently reside in that have both M-Pay as well as the kiosks.
So I appreciate that. So is that the only hardware solution that works with the M-Pay software, or the only one that you offer as part of a solution?
No, actually, well, the kiosk itself, like I said, we represent the Loop 2 and the T2 system. It's our primary vendor. There are other pay-by-phone entities that are out there that can be utilized, but basically there was an RFP, I believe, for the pay-by-phone service, and I believe that the town, the borough did their due diligence on selecting, and they'd received multiple bids and made a decision. I guess or process of making a decision.
So let me actually ask the police department: was this an RFP for just a new management system for parking, or was this just for a mobile pay? Because I thought this was to replace the entire system.
A combination of the mobile pay and kiosks.
Okay. And then the other question, I'm sorry, but you said you represent ITS, but the contract that we have here is with mobile payment processing systems?
Who is M-Pay to Park, actually. M-Pay to Park is actually M-Pay to Park is actually a subsidiary sister company to ITS. ITS is a systems integrator We do installation service. We sell the units. We support, we monitor, all of that. We do like I said, the installations as well. Pay to Park is a sister company that is more of a software-based solution that has the pay by phone, the enforcement app. We also have another branch that does ticketing and permitting solutions as well.
So our contract is with them, and then they engage you to do the actual implementation. Correct. You do the servicing?
Correct.
That's all part of the contract?
Correct, right. Yeah.
Okay. And then also the other thing that we discussed previously when we were looking at the contract was the license plate reader. It seems to me, today the solution is not elegant, that you have to put numbers on every spot, but when you go to the box and you see which spots are empty, you go out in the lot and check. Now you're going to have a full lot with, let's say, 100 cars in it and 100 license plates. How quickly can somebody take that list and walk through the lot to determine which cars have paid and which ones have not without the license plate reader?
You have the best question, and I sat in the chief's office this morning, and he looked at me and asked that same question.
Okay.
And when we were sitting in Milburn, and Cindy was going through this enforcement tablet, and they have on-street parking, and it does a variety of things. And I said, wait a minute, how do you possibly do this? And the three of them looked at me and said, you don't do parking. I'm like, yeah, but how do you do it? I don't understand. There's a list of plates. They're like, this is what we do. This is how. I couldn't believe it myself. They actually went out there, and we went through the Milburn parking decks, and you had to see the way they checked the plates versus the iPad. It was amazing. It was as if there was an ALPR, because that's what they do all day long. I didn't understand it myself. And the chief asked me a question, I said, and right, Chief, it was just this morning. I said, I asked the same question. I was dumbfounded. And they all looked at me as if I had three heads. I said, Joe, this is what we do. There is a list like that of license plates in alphabetic order, and she goes down and boom, next, boom, and literally in 10 minutes, the lot's done. Or in Milburn's case, we spent several hours in Milburn, but I was dumbfounded. I didn't understand it, and their response to me, you obviously don't do parking, until I saw them do it, and I'm like, wow, it's amazing. So
if your regular parking enforcement officer is not available, you have to send somebody else out. How long is it going to take them to get up to speed to check the same thing? You think it's a relatively simple matter if you had to go out do it yourself once every month or so?
That I don't know.
Okay.
Back to the microphone, please. Yeah.
You're going to get in the tablet, right? You'll get a listing of either an icon form or in list form, okay, of all valid plate numbers, all plates that are valid and are about to expire, and all invalid plates. And invalid plates could also be based on zones. In other words, so say for example, in this situation, you're only looking at two lots. So it would basically be two zones. But if one car is supposed to be in one zone and has paid for a zone and is parked in the other zone, again, it's up to your discretion whether or not that's a violation, but you'll know. You'll be able to make that determination. Is this a valid plate or is this a violation plate? And you'll be able to see that information right away. In addition to that, too, not only will you know who is valid and who is not, you'll know the amount of time it's been since they became invalid. So say, for example, a plate has become invalid. Now, in your case, it's really not going to matter because
it's a daily lot.
Lots, okay?
Yes.
But ultimately, like I said, you would have that ability to do, to basically say, okay, they've expired 10 minutes ago. I can give them, that much of a grace period, that's something like that. But you're basically going to have that information, at your disposal very quickly. It's targeted enforcement, and what it does is it allows you to, to enforce in a very, very targeted fashion, such that, when you do enforcement with parking, say in a scenario where you're doing either what we call pay and display or even the slot box, basically, you have to go to that particular car or to that particular slot, to determine. You're going to know immediately if there's 88 spaces in the lot. Okay, you're going to know immediately that there's 12 that are in violation, and you're going to know you can find those license plates immediately. So it ends up increasing your violations revenue, and also, as Joe was saying, increasing your overall revenue, because that same spot can be paid for more than once, because the system can be set up so that, say for example, somebody pays for it once, for the daily spot, and then by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they decide, they're done for the day, they leave. Someone else comes in at that point, okay, and parks. they're going to be expected to pay the daily rate as well, too. Okay? Because what's going to happen is that in your enforcement, you're going to see that that spot was paid earlier for a different plate, but now there's a different plate associated with it. So,
Yeah, that's more valuable in a sort of hourly. So just one more question before I ask the question. I just want to say, number one, I do want to move forward with something like this. The current system we have is archaic and painful. I just want to make sure we're picking the right system. The last question I have is, although it has more of an application in like an hourly situation, it even has some application here. Does your application allow somebody who has the app to see whether or not there are any spots available in the lot based on, that there's, let's say, 88 spots and how many have been sold for the day?
well, it is GPS based. In other words, when you go to, like I said, there's over 40 communities in the state of New Jersey that have this application right now. There's over 40 communities in and around New Jersey, Westchester County, and tri-state area that have this application, and you're able to utilize. It's like like you were saying, kind of like Easy Pass in a scenario. If I'm in Red Bank, or if I'm in Millburn, or if I'm in any town that has it, I can utilize my account.
No. But can I look up the lot behind the police station and see there's 88 spots? Are any still available?
Yeah, it does use GPS. And what I was just driving at is from a scenario the closest lot will be available to you, so you can choose where you want to park. But as of right now, there is not and nor does any of these apps right now have that ability right now to prepay. There are additions to sensor type solutions. In other words, they put sensors in the ground, that type of thing, that would enable you then to be able to determine if a spot is available. And that can be incorporated into these types of systems. But what we found as a parking systems integrator is that technology right now is not as accurate as it needs to be. Because There has to be a sensor to tell you the spaces are available.
Apologies for interrupting, but
Yeah, just a second, Ben.
okay.
Ben, I've got John and Maureen that just raised their hands.
No, that's fine. I'll go last. But what I was going to ask is that whoever's speaking get closer to that microphone. The parking microphone is not really a sensor.
That's a good. That was a good one to interrupt for us for. Thanks, Ben. All right, John and then Maureen.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. Assuming that we do approve this tonight with the modified wording that the mayor mentioned earlier, can someone please share what the next steps might be and the timing of getting this done?
I'll try this a little better. We have minimal amount of work to do for the machines themselves. I think the delivery time is 6 weeks on a machine. The only thing we'd be looking to do, and I talked to the superintendent of public works for a concrete pad. ITS would supply us a template, something that could be done in a day. The other thing is the media campaign. When do we want to release it where it has the best benefit to the customers? When can we have people out there at the kiosk to say, listen, this is a new kiosk, but we would like you to use the app. That is our goal. It's a good system. We want you to use the app, but if you have to use the kiosk, this is here. So
it sounded to not to cut you off, Joe. It sounded like about a 3-month implementation, maybe 6 to 8 weeks probably 4 months, but with the lead time and the marketing and all that can be done coincidental. So it sounds like about 3 months.
Yes. Now, Mr. Rowe, just going back to your question before, you can say Lot 3 has 100 spaces, daily spaces. Whether you pay at the kiosk or the app, once that 100 is hit, you can't pay anymore. Was that your question?
No.
My question is, if I'm at home and I'm trying to decide, am I driving to the Madison train station, parking and taking the train, or am I just driving to Secaucus because the Madison train station is full? It would be nice if I could look at the app and see, are there any spots left before I drive that way instead of driving that way out of town.
All right.
Yeah. I did notice some other parking apps, as he said, if there are sensors, they can tell you where there are available spots in a town. If there's, mainly it's for metered, but they also said if there's a parking deck, they usually keep track of how many spots are available and how many cars they think are inside.
A parking deck is a little bit different, though.
Because it's metered in and out.
Well, because the parking deck, actually, they're utilizing, right, they're, that's called, because it's gated, you count the cars.
Count in and count out, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But just one more thing to answer your question as far as, MPATA Park will work with the borough and the police department to provide, marketing collateral, to work to get links to your website, to provide, stickers and to help with that process. In addition, ITS, in addition to providing for the kiosk, to providing the documentation on the mounting pad, we also work with you to set up your cellular provider, for the networking. We also work with you to set up your merchant account if you don't have one. We'll facilitate that as well and go over all that setup while we're waiting for the kiosk. That's basically, we have an initial project meeting, we sit down with the parties involved, we discuss everything, everybody's tasks, what needs to be done, and that's, we lay it out on a piece-by-piece basis.
Well, I mean, I assume this was a turnkey that
Yeah.
you don't leave until we're satisfied that people
No.
can
And we don't
pay all the different ways that they're supposed to be able to pay.
Exactly, and we don't leave. Actually, quite honestly, like I said, this is a relationship thing for us. We've been like I said, we've got over 2,000 of these pay stations under our care, and all these communities. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing process, and it's something that we'll work with you to change it and grow as it.
And it'll be managed by the police, so they won't be able to leave. Sorry. Maureen.
Okay, so my questions are going out and specifically using the license plate reader, because we have a problem with parking in our downtown. Madison is very protective of the fact that parking downtown is free. And if you mention to anyone the idea of putting a meter downtown, they will give you a piece of their mind. Would this system be able to replace what our current traffic officer is doing, which is basically walking up and down and chalking tires? So would she be able to drive and point this reader at all the cars and then come back an hour, 2 hours later and run the same license plates and it would come up?
What you're talking about, Maureen, is what you're talking about right there. That's essentially what Joe was referring to and Chief was referring to as an ALPR system. That is when you actually have like a vehicle equipped with a camera, okay, to be able to scan the plates as you're going down. And yes, that absolutely could happen. And that feature that you're talking about is something called an auto chalking feature. That's part of that. So what would happen is that as the vehicle is driving and scanning the plates, with the auto chalking feature, what it would do is it would, within the system, it would actually write the time that it saw the initial plate, right? And then a timer would start. And then if you give it an hour, 2 hours, whatever you determine that to be, when you come back the next time, if it's past that time, it would then an ALPR system would give you an audible alert and another alert to tell you that plate is now in violation. So to answer that question, that's a piece that can be added down the road. But yes, that's what would happen. One of the things that you're also talking about, as far as with is absolutely the case with most municipalities that do not pay for parking downtown, is because a lot of times the merchants and shop owners feel that paid parking will deter people from coming to their locations and shopping at their stores. The actuality, though, is that in a lot of times the people that are parking in those spots nearby their stores are either residents or employees, and a lot of times too. So what a paid parking solution does is help to generate turn. And what turn is, it means to keep those spots open, open for people that are actually paying. And quite honestly, real quick, just to give you a quick story. Seabright was an example. They were a community,
It's a shore
seaside
town.
community, shore community, that up until about 2 years ago did not have paid parking whatsoever. They viewed themselves not as a tourist location, they viewed themselves as a community, and they wanted to keep tourists out. What happened was is they ultimately had a community center that was supposed to be federally funded with a grant. It was a very large undertaking, and the grant disappeared. So they had this community center and this very large note that they had to pay back, and they had to find some way to pay for it. So they reluctantly, voted to go with paid parking, and ultimately, within the first summer, they made about $250,000 in parking. They implemented this app as well, both the kiosk.
And I'm just trying to stay on track, and so not to cut you off.
It did work very, very well.
So I have two more questions. One is, and I think you alluded to it before, is that it could be teamed with an e-ticket system so that a ticket would be automatically generated and sent to the offender. Could it all, is there room in the database to identify repeat offenders so that, I have a store downtown and I park my car right in front of my store because I figure
So the question would be, if we implemented escalating
could you
fines.
have escalating fees?
The chief's been, that's one of his hot topics, is for repeat offenders, or a tier defense system, and yes, an e-ticket solution would be handled, that would be handled through the courts, but again, it's all digital, so therefore it can be done. We utilized the e-ticket feature last week, 2 weeks ago. Again, it's just in the final stages with the AOC of being approved. City will be able to do a ticket in 15 seconds compared to 50 seconds now.
And my final question is it possible to assume that within the lifetime of these kiosks, people will become so used to using the app that we will no longer need the kiosk? I mean, we all know how to call an Uber car on our phones.
Our goal at first is to hopefully to get 50 to 60% compliance within the first couple of years. But yes, the life expectancy is about 10 to 12 years. Hopefully at the end of that life cycle of that kiosk, we're hoping that there will no longer be needed.
Thank you.
Hey, Carmelo, before I go to Ben,
I think that this was a great discussion tonight. Thank you for all of you coming. I think this is an important issue. One of the things I want to say is to the Friends of Madison train station, very generous, to help out with this for 2 kiosks. I've used them in Morristown and have been impressed with it. Sometimes you don't always have that dollar, and you could put your credit card in. It's an easy situation. So I like the thought of using these, and I've also used them, and I'm sure that you guys probably have been down in Springfield and seen that poor pathetic thing that they use that is just an absolute mess. I think one of the things that I want to bring up, and it probably won't be popular, but I'm going to say it anyway. Madison right now is charging $5 for a daily parking. We're about on the lowest end at this point, and you've made remarks about most of these people that are using this are out-of-towners. We've been very cognizant, I think, of being very careful with our permit parking and giving our residents the ability to park not at exorbitant prices. I think we've done a good job with that. And but in the case of this particular situation, especially that we're going to be picking up that 30 cents and whatever, I think it's something that we have to think about. $2 more wouldn't probably, be harmful to people who'll be parking there all day. I do like, and when I first heard this, when John Rafter and Vinnie were here, and we talked about that reader that Cindy could use, I know it's expensive. Am I right? Is that what the cause of it is? Is that the automated license plate reader?
Yeah, the ALPR for the vehicle itself, which would include the cameras as well as the software and the hardware box to be able to do that. They do range. Our system is around $32,000 to $34,000.
Okay.
There's other systems out there that honestly range to about $50,000
Okay.
Per vehicle,
Yeah.
but it is an expensive proposition. But one of the things that we do for a lot of our clients with regards to the kiosks as well is a return on investment type payback analysis, and it's and the way that we do it is we basically take into account the amount of money that you'll be collecting on a monthly basis based on the number of spaces. We factor in turn, in this case it's going to be a daily lot, so that'll be minimal, but we also figure in occupancy rate as well. And in general, what we've found is that in most instances, you'll pay for it like within 7 to 10 months. However, in the case of Seabright, they paid for it literally within a month. It depends on the number of transactions and the revenue. But again, we can do that for you as well.
Does that technology change dramatically? Have you noticed the technology on that changing dramatically?
You guys are absolutely right as far as the industry is moving towards a phone-based system. The kiosks, what it is right now is not everybody, as Chief was saying too, the adoption rate, is, you should be able to get up in a train station maybe 70 to 80%, but there always is going to be about that 20% who either just don't want to have a smartphone or who just, don't sign up for the app or whatever it is. So a lot of times a kiosk is kind of a necessary backup in a lot of instances. It offers multiple payment options. It offers the ability not to collect more revenue, ease of enforcement, so on and so forth. But you are correct, and that down the road I think it is going to go more in that direction. But actually what you're talking about here is just that. Ideally, like again when I mentioned Seabright, if they had just done kiosks, they would have needed about 10 to 12 for their application. They ended up putting in 6 kiosks and the pay by phone, and it's worked phenomenally well for them. As a matter of fact, they're looking for additional, parking areas that they can find. But yes, you are correct. The last thing I just wanted to Joe is 100% correct, and I just wanted to clarify the fees as far as on the 30 cents. The kiosk and the pay by phone, the 30 cents, is the fee. That also in that 30 cents is the fee to run the app as well as the credit card fees. So the end user does not get charged or get hit with any credit card fees whatsoever. In that 30 cents, what we do, we call it a convenience fee ultimately because when it's raining, you don't have to go to the kiosk. When it's, you can add time remotely. That's the way it works. In other words, they'll send you a text message when you're about to expire. If you're able to add time, when you're in your application, you can get on the train if you're running late and not have to do it. The issue, though, or I should say, the scenario is that 30 cents can either be absorbed, by the municipality, or it can be passed on to the consumer. With the pay station, it's similar in the sense that there's a credit card fee, but if your fee is $5, what we can do with the kiosk is that you're working with a credit card processor that's going to do the same thing. It may charge 15 cents or 20 cents out of that $5, and the town can either net that $4.80, or we can do like the gas stations do, and we can charge a credit card fee of $5.15 as opposed to $5. You have the option in both scenarios, both with the app and both with the kiosk, to do whatever you will with the credit card fees. Just wanted to make sure that was understood.
Okay, Ben, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. And by the way, if I raise something that was asked before, please let me know that because it was hard to hear the presentation. First of all, Carmela, you're not alone. I agree with your point about how we charge and who we charge. And it leads me, I know we can differentiate to some extent, obviously, between cash payment and people who pay on the app, but can we distinguish in any other ways between, say people who live in Madison, people who don't, by their license plates, or, I'm reaching, but I'm just trying to get an understanding of how much flexibility we will have.
There is a possibility. We've talked about it. Two things that would deter us for that. We feel the management end of having to deal with the different rates would be a little bit difficult thing to manage. The other thing you have to be careful about is because it's quasi-public area, we'd have to refer to Mr. Jacoby over here, but there has been some issues with charging.
And the Crescent would be out of the discussion because that's New Jersey.
Yes, understood.
Yep.
So that would be something, I think there is something there. But the one thing we can do, we looked into, if you wanted to charge a rate of $7 for the kiosk and $6 for the app, you could differentiate.
Let's try to. I think we're very much getting into the weeds right now, and spent an hour and a half on and we still have another parking thing. And I don't want to cut you short, Ben, but I think just on this very quickly. If we stick with the slots, it's very difficult to go to $6, $7 because now you got people stuffing. Bottom line is technology is there. It gives us the flexibility to come up with a rate structure that makes sense for the product we're delivering. Ben?
All right, I just have another question or two. I mean, I've waited a long time. So, very quickly. One is I know that Pat Rowe asked a question regarding the proprietary nature of the kiosk versus the app. I didn't get the answer. Is the app like the kiosk, or are they separate entities?
You have to stand up and talk into the mic so you can hear you.
Yeah,
He wants to know if the hardware...
Ben, are you asking if the app and the kiosk are separate?
Yes.
No, they're not. They're all tied into the same system.
Thank you. And just one very quick question. I know you're in many places in New Jersey. I saw the list. I believe it's 29. Do you have installations outside of the state?
Yes, absolutely. We do. We have installations from New England down to D.C. as ITS, and the product itself is installed throughout North America, actually. So, but we have, like I said, over 2,000 pay stations, kiosks, and about 40 plus municipalities that are using the MPay to Park application. To answer your question, though, the kiosk itself, there are, like we said, there are other pay by phone applications out there that can work with the kiosk. But that being said, this is an all-in-one solution as far as for enforcement and something that. The other thing too is when you have lots of times when you have multiple vendors that you're dealing with, you get the finger point when something goes wrong. In this scenario, Joe's able to make one phone call and we're able to resolve this, the problem for you regardless of which entity it is.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Richard, you had something from the Friends to add? You have to come up to the microphone, and you're representing the Friends in this with your hat. Thank you.
I have on is the Friends hat right now. Just a little bit of history for all you. We raised the parking rates 7.5 years ago from a low of $3, I believe it was, versus $5 in the other lot to match the downtown. New Jersey Transit is very comfortable with us raising in unison with the town. So should you choose to raise up to $7, which is what we're all kind of talking about here, I don't think we would have any difficulty with New Jersey Transit in doing that. They were very understanding and supportive when we did it the last time. But the other note is, it's been 7.5 years at this rate, okay, since I've been involved with the parking lot. And it's time for us to at least look at, if we're going to take a 30-cent burden, to look at an additional offset of our costs and the cost of the department, and also planning for the future and offering new technology.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to say, and we discussed this previously, once you go to this type of system, you can do more frequent but smaller increases because people are not tied to stuffing dollar bills into a machine. So we can actually do it not every 7 years, but every year or two, depending on sort of what the market will bear. And I think the first thing we'd have to do, though, is roll the 30 cents in.
Yep. So if we're comfortable, let me just read the new number 1. It would start with, upon completion of a satisfactory review of the customer references, contract language, and financials by the Borough Administrator, the Mayor and Council are hereby authorized to execute. So that becomes the new number 1. So if we're comfortable, this will be fully read. Well, if I pretty much read into the record, this will be part of the consent on 211. Very good. Okay. Moving on to the downtown part, and we're, as I mentioned, went a little bit longer on this than we liked, but this is another good topic, and we will get rolling. I kind of introduced this as the one of the many phases of urbanomics, and certainly in light of the hour, we don't need to get into a full urbanomics update, but let's certainly concentrate on the parking part of it. Sorry, I got distracted for a second there.
Sorry if I distracted you. Well, this is an interesting segue. I feel like, we are going from something very specific to something a little higher level and a little more complicated. You are certainly all aware that the downtown business property owners have been expressing concerns about parking downtown for at least 20 or more years. There have been numerous parking studies done over the years, and an evaluation of current parking issues was done as part of the urbanomics study. As is the case, though, with every study, the conditions at the time are evaluated, but the conditions continually change and have again in the years since the study was released. We are in many ways a victim of our own success, and the downtown, and you'll hear this from Cindy Weir, is busier than it practically or definitely has ever been. And I think also, when you look at downtown parking, it's also hard to wrap your hands around it because it's an inconsistent problem. On Mondays, the downtown is pretty empty. In the summer, it's pretty empty. It varies day to day, but on a September, mid-October day, try to find a parking spot to go to lunch. You can't do it. It's at the point now where I know I've done it a couple of times. There is just not a spot to be had. So in May, we were brought a survey, an informal survey done by a business property owner, Karen Cionato. She did a wonderful and thorough job and was able to collect a lot of very interesting data for us. The first and foremost thing that it showed was that really, at least on paper or in theory, we have an inadequate number of parking spaces. She showed that at least 400 to 500, not necessarily all at the same time, employees seek parking downtown. There are only 100 merchant permit parking spots available. Over 200 permits have been sold for that same 100 parking spots. So as you can see, the math just does not add up. We have total commuter permit spaces that have been sold. There's 269 spaces available. There's 388 permits sold, and there's 90 more on a waiting list. There are 169 daily spaces, And the rates for those are low, and the demand is much higher than there are available spaces. And then what happens is it becomes a cascading effect, because the excess commuter demand results in illegal parking in private lots and on streets, taking spaces from customers. Also, right now, the location of the merchant tenant permit spots are in prime customer parking areas like the Cook and Elmer and Green Avenue lots. Green Avenue has all 49 spaces right now are all permit. Cook Avenue, of the 130, including handicapped, it's 134 total, 34 of them are permit. In the Elmer Street lot, there's 47 spaces, and 20 of them are permit only. So what is all this leading to? Business owners have stopped purchasing permits. There are limited spaces available. The cost of the permits is also a little prohibitive for a small business owner. Let's say if you have a restaurant and you have 15, 18 employees doing, shift work, etc. So at $150 each, then it becomes, if you have to buy 20, it's a different scenario and a different burden on a business owner. Then it's no longer, we have the little mom and pops where you needed 1, maybe 2 permit per business. Free parking is very challenging to manage. We have one parking officer who is managing it by marking tires and the fact that she knows your car. Penalties are not really high enough or progressive enough to provide true incentive to obey the regulations. Business owners are willing to take and pay for a ticket if they can stay and sit in that spot all day long. $22 for a parking ticket downtown is less than it would perhaps cost you to park in a garage in Morristown all day. And as always, we're up against human nature. And business owner and employee is on a rush to get to work, is not going to want to park, 6 blocks away. So that's some of what the challenges that we face, and those really haven't changed. They maybe have gotten a little bit worse. This is a lot of text on here. I'm not going to read it. This is directly from the Urbanomics study where they showed you the parking inventory. It's in here. I thought it would be helpful for you to have. They did do a great job laying out the street spots, etc. This is of value. They did also a great inventory on the existing lots. But I am not going to read that all to you. Before I go into the recommendations, I read this passage in an article in the Strong Towns newsletter last week by Chuck Moran. And I would highly recommend you subscribe to that newsletter. It's a lot of great, really, really great articles. And I was really struck by what he had to say and how it applies to our parking issues. It's doing the little things first that give you the credibility to do the big things later. It's taking small steps now that demonstrates competence to take larger steps in the future. It's doing the obvious thing, sitting right in front of your face, that gives you the clarity of vision to fully comprehend that more distant challenge. We earn the right to do big things by doing the little things well. The mantra repeated in the article over and over again was, let's do this first. I believe very strongly in doing things incrementally, researching, analyzing, then working our way up the ladder, trying the simple common sense fixes first. This isn't always the fastest route, but I believe that it's always the most efficient. These are the Urbanomics recommendations regarding parking. The ones highlighted in yellow are things that are in progress. actual progress. The ones in gray are in the research phase, things we're still looking into. The one that's in strike-through is one that was discarded because the police felt that it would actually exacerbate the current problem. While encouraging merchants to park farther away is a great idea in theory, in order to achieve this, they need a place to go. There's a lot of small things that we're looking at right now that may allow us to increase our merchant parking inventory in the short term. Things that were brought up here, marking, striping the spots on Elmer and Cook so that the consumers have more space, so they're not taking permit spaces. You know, it goes round and round. Everybody wants a parking space, and they're not necessarily paying attention to the permit-only signs, etc. We've been meeting with all manner of parking experts regarding parking structures, parking management strategies, etc. We're also looking at alternative means of transportation. We've spoken to Mike Rogers of Summit regarding their Lyft program. We are scheduled to meet next week with Joe Colangelo from Boxcar regarding some great ideas he has. He's working on a project in New Canaan, Connecticut, with some off-site parking for merchants, et cetera, for permit holders. And he's also, I asked him to look into possible jitney shuttle, because it always strikes me that we have huge swaths of asphalt that sit empty a good portion of the year. The pool parking lot, the high school parking lot, both are within less than 1.5 miles to the train station. So I've asked him to evaluate that as well, because we need more merchant parking spots. If we can free up some commuter spots for merchant, I mean, there's so many different scenarios and so many different ways to look at this. Bottom line is we need more parking spots. We are also looking at, in addition to striping Cook and Elmer, we're also talking to the police department. When Kings Road is finished, the construction here, the police are considering adding more parking, more striped parking. You know, and so it's trying to determine, is there zones that we can designate as merchant, for merchant use? Could it be Kings Road along the trestle? Could it be Britton Street? We don't know. We haven't narrowed it all down yet, but the bottom line is trying to find ways to get more parking spaces or more parking opportunity for people. We are also looking at the merchant lot over here on Green Avenue. We've had Omland Engineering come in to take a look at it. There seems to be a great deal of wasted space in there that could possibly be, with very little construction, add a good number more spots. We're not really sure about the number yet because we've run into problems. It seems like everything half a step forward, half a step back, because there's issues with the deed over there, and it's trying to figure out the actual property restrictions. I've kind of broken these things down into buckets, like short-term, mid-term, longer-term. I think I've gone over just about all of them. I don't think I missed any. There's just so many opportunities. We're not alone in this. I was reading today, again, that Red Bank is actually on the verge of another parking study. And I think everybody's feeling the pressure now because we don't know what the future will hold. Everybody's talking about autonomous cars in the face of building parking structures. It's a very complicated issue, and I think if we just work our way through it little by little, it'll all come together.
While I'm thinking of this, because I'll forget.
Okay, sure.
You have a Cook Avenue parking lot concept for 2019.
Yes.
Is that going to add spaces there?
No.
No?
It most likely is not. But in the 180 days would be a look at where else we can build surface lots. And you probably are familiar that we've been talking with the Board of Education since the KRE development about putting affordable housing over on the Central Avenue School property. And in conjunction with that, the administration has been working on some early concepts with landscape architect Tom Salaki for creating parking that would service both the school and create more merchant spots between the Civic Center and the Central Avenue School property.
Right.
Lisa, if you want to just flip to the next slide, since that kind of is reference to, and just a quick, if we don't want to spend too much time, this is still very much work in progress, but, Carmela's question, does it add more parking? No, but does it make it a safer lot? Because it creates only an entrance or an exit, or two double entrance exits instead of the 4 we now have. It also, the concept is that is our welcoming parking. That is our number one shopper parking lot, and what it looks like right now is pretty unwelcoming. So that was more of the goal, was to come up with a design with a minimal change in parking spots, but not gaining.
But it was always the thought that, you can't have 34 permit spots. If we can find a place to relocate those to, that obviously opens up spots for consumers and people who should be using that lot on a regular basis.
Which would then be a net gain for customers if we were able to find a better spot for the merchants.
That's the goal. All right. I kind of ran through the parking, but it was a lot to cover. I would say I hope you support the parking app. I think that's a great step forward for us as far as parking management is concerned. It would bring us into the 21st century, and I think it's a good first step. Now, this was hard. Just bear with me. This was hard to kind of all put into one presentation. So, and then like was said, the mayor mentioned before, I'll certainly be back as these things evolve, and there's a lot of ground to cover here. When you look at the areas that the urbanomics study touched on, the recommendations came in like 4 buckets: marketing and branding, zoning and development, parking, which I've covered, and placemaking. When they originally were released, we sat down, the DDC went through them, the planning board went through them, and we sorted those recommendations into, as you will see here, it's
Just trying to be mindful of time as to the council's feeling, whether we want to spend much time on this or come back at another time, and really, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you the buckets. I'm not reading all of these.
Yep.
No worries.
I would leave it at the parking, maybe.
Yeah, yep. So what we'll do, if we can you can zip through pretty quickly. We'll have the full presentation online for residents to get a update, and we'll limit the.
It's all there. It's all color coded. The red ones are the ones that were discarded, and they were discarded either on the basis of the fact that they didn't apply to what the systems we had here, or the people evaluating them at the time felt they were already being done, etc. All right. All right, I'm not going to go into this.
Yeah.
This is really the planning board's purview, but it's there, and I've broken them down again into the buckets of completed in progress and research phase. The most crucial thing that came out of this, and I think everybody as far in the business community and moving here and wanting to open a business was was the changes made to the parking requirements were huge. That was done last fall. The outstanding issues will be addressed by the planning board. And then really quickly, in marketing and branding, these were a few little snippets from the Urbanomics thing about what it should focus on. Here is a quick overview of the progress. The business list is complete, just so you know what we got from Urbanomics was not complete. I had to take that and kind of combine it with a bunch of other databases. I'm finding, we are in a good position. There's constant turnover and constant new stuff coming in, so it will never be truly finished, because the minute I think it's finished, we have 4 more businesses coming in, which is awesome. But it's ongoing. I'm also, thankfully, I have Michael Pelessier now to help me work on the webpage, which needs some major updates. I ran into an issue. I'm trying to get a listing of available spaces up.
Bless you.
It was very interesting. Got some interesting comments from realtors about whether or not that was time well spent. Interesting perspective where they said that a lot of new businesses don't want, or a lot of property owners don't want that kind of stuff advertised. They like to keep that very close to the vest, and they don't like when rumors get out ahead of time, etc. As far as the scope of the
let's see. I think we'll get to the.
I only have a few. I only have 2 more. It's all there.
It's all there. Yeah. Sorry, not to.
There's a lot of good things. Just so you know, there's a lot of good things going on. A lot of research being done. We did. I'm ready to go on a lot of these pieces, and we also won a grant from the Morris County Economic Development for the new visitor center at the museum. And here we are. We're done.
So let's go back to slide 6, which is the action plan, just to do a quick review, and then we can have a discussion related to that. So recommendations for kind of the short term are the subcommittee, DDC and Chamber, new merchant parking areas, which includes taking advantage of underutilized parking and private control, adjustment to parking permits, and communication plan for all those changes. And then also, we've already talked about number 5. So that's all kind of summertime activity, correct?
Well, hopefully you'll do number 5 tonight.
Right.
Everything else is ongoing and in progress. It's shared use agreements. I'm waiting to hear back from the Board of Education, waiting to hear back. I would not hold out a whole lot of hope in the shared use agreements with private property owners, in that they have other options that pay them unless you're willing to pay them. It's not, the days of 2007 are gone. So, I mean, everybody's willing to talk to us, but I don't know how successful we'll be. I'm certainly, pursuing it.
Yeah, it certainly needs to benefit both sides.
Right.
And in the 60 to 90, which includes the creative solutions which are being successful. Summit has provided us with quite a bit of good examples of what they started with for
Yes.
commuters originally, and now are using the lift for getting merchants and employees into town, local ones, and then the progressive parking violations.
I shared their RFP with you, et cetera, and their rates and stuff. So you have that information.
And then you mentioned the boxcar example that I think we need to do more research, but the story that was told to us was New Canaan was looking at building a parking structure and has now put that aside because they feel they've come up with creative solutions for that merchant parking challenge. So.
Right. So we've asked Joe to come in and talk to us about that, as well as a jitney.
All right. So
I also reached out to the gentleman who happens to be Ray Cody's cousin who runs the jitney service in South Orange. We're trying to set up a meeting with him as well.
Sounds good. So we'll shake things up a little bit. I'm going to start with Ben first, if you want to go first, Ben, and then we'll work around. Ben?
Sure, thank you. Actually, I really don't have much because Lisa and I have talked about this, and I've talked to other people about it. I'm pleased to see this action plan because I think it prioritizes things properly. And outside of that, any way I can help, let me know.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, Maureen?
I just have two things to say. When we are looking at parking downtown, we have to remember that we have residents living downtown and they have cars, and so they have to be taken into consideration. The second thing I want to say is I know we have talked about a parking structure on Kings Road as a possible answer to our parking problems, but I think we have to work very hard to identify as much parking as we can. Parking structures are very expensive to build, and I would hate to see us build a parking structure that could handle 200 cars and nobody park in it.
Well, that, and as I mentioned before, with the future, I mean, everybody's dealing with this now. If the structure would be obsolete within 10, 20 years, what else could it become? I mean, it's a very complicated issue, but I think we're going about it the right way and working through all these things one at a time and progressively.
John?
I haven't got anything to add, Mayor. Thank you.
Pat?
I think one of the things that we need to do is sort of come up with scenarios of what the downtown parking needs could be in 5 to 10 years. If you went back 10 or 15 years, you probably would not have guessed that the mix of businesses that we have would be what they are today. And I think the evolution is going to continue in the same direction, which is more service-type businesses that have more employees and more customers. So although you may be able to cobble together enough things today, the real question is in 5 or 10 years, where are we going to be? So that's one. The other thing is something that was in the Urbanomics study, which I know is a hot topic if you have a Facebook account, which I don't, but I hear about it all the time. And that is the thing about infill downtown with more residential structures. And I think we also need to have a conversation about what direction we want to take there, because if we do that, that will also drive more service-oriented businesses, which will still bring even more people in. At a minimum, they'll be employees. And so I think both of those need to seriously be considered quickly, because I realize if we're going to spend a lot of money redoing the Cook parking lot, that was one of the places that we were considering if we ever going to do a parking garage. So we're going to sink $100,000 or $50,000 into that lot, only 2 or 3 years later to say that's the ideal place to put something else. So I think we need to take a look at both of those issues collectively and maybe discuss it, advertise and let people know, we really need feedback from a lot of people on this, as opposed to like this conversation tonight that has, 4 or 5 people from the public here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Carmela,
You know I'm going to say something about your bun, right? I've been listening to parking from, listen, I owned my own business in Madison a long time ago, and there was a parking problem then, and that was way back in the 60s. Okay, so, I understand, I understand the problems. I've said in the past that I think it's a walking problem. I think that if, part of the urbanonics, and I'm grateful for you because this was one of my biggest problems. I could never just get defined stuff out of that urbanonics study, but this is going to be very helpful to me. There's a lot to that study that we paid, a great deal of money for that. We're just like starting to concern ourselves only with parking. Whereas if we were enhancing the downtown, I remember like a few years back, we talked about putting plaques on each one of the buildings to say it was designated in such and such a year and what it was prior, way back when and whatever. And it would give people an opportunity to walk into look at what Madison, that historic downtown actually is. There's a lot in here that I think is just as important as the parking. The trash cans are real important. The water fountains downtown are real important. And I don't know. I think that you have a lot to do. And I don't know how some of this is going to be accomplished at the same time when everybody's saying to you, figure out how to park, 500 people in 100 spaces.
I think so far it's been manageable, for sure. And all these other things I was going to tell you, had been started and had, things are underway and pretty far down the road with a lot of them. I've run into certain obstacles, sort of like as I just shared with you, that NJ transit trestle wall issue, the state of decay and whatever. I mean, I can't talk about putting public art in those spaces as Urbanomics has recommended if those
look so bad,
if they're in such terrible shape. So it's things like that. But as I hit those things, I kind of have been diving in and kind of moving through them, like the slideshow you just got. I've been also talking to MACA about reinvigorating their presence and sort of commitment to the arts, because if you're going to do big public art projects, you can't. It would be wonderful to have an organization like MACA behind that and pushing that forward. I did meet with a muralist on last Friday about the Kings Road trestle to start that conversation. I think it's good that I think I have ADHD, so I'm constantly jumping from thing to thing. But I think that we just research and one at a time.
Lisa, I understand you probably do 5,000 things a day. I've seen you do it. What I'm saying is I think that people have to understand that we just can't concentrate only on the parking.
No.
We've got, way back in '85 when they did that first project for public spaces, this town was really dead looking. And God bless Betty Bumgarner, she just said, hey, listen, we're going to get something done. And we have what we have, but we have to keep on improving it.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the buildings are old. The pavers have problems. We just have to, we have to just kind of remember that that's an important factor.
I have a whole nother slideshow, photo album coming on some of the sidewalk issues, the signage issues.
Oh, so don't talk to me about those signs.
So We have a lot to do, and then I'll be back many times. And
We'll help you. We'll help you. Just,
Yeah,
just
please.
kind of remember that. I mean, you could reach out. You could reach out because we know a lot of people. We could get volunteers.
Yep, we can.
There's a lot of
And
good
have
people.
and great cooperation from the chamber as well.
So a couple of recommendations to get this moving forward. Subcommittee,
Ben already started.
okay, so we'll have a conversation between now and the next council meeting so we can come back with,
We have volunteers from the chamber and
Yep.
the DDC already slated.
sounds good, so we can confirm that. The 90 to 180, I would suggest let's change it to 90 to 120. The reason for that is to Pat's comment of if we are going to consider structured parking, we need to eliminate or sites or prioritize sites before we make investments in various sites. So I think if we get that done in more of this calendar year, so we can guide next year's capital, and we've had some discussions as to the surface parking, whether it's a paid consultant or there's other options out there to get that done. The other related to merchant parking, it's going to be I think some phase changes, but I'm a strong component of changing our permit process, our merchant permits, which would become at least in the short term. And the reason I want to bring it up now is for 2019 is there are Monday through Friday permits, and so there is no permit parking in downtown lots because we have unlimited parking in our commuter lots. We should not be losing. Our busiest day is Saturday mornings. We're giving up a good chunk of Elmer and a good chunk of Cook when we have empty commuter lots. So that should be in place for 2019 before we sell those permits. So those are, I think, the hot things. Anything else that we need to put on the hot priority, and we'll get that back and move it through with DDC monitoring and other groups. All right. Thank you. And I apologize for kind of cutting off some of your great work, but the slides are there for future. Ordinance for hearing. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Okay, the ordinance scheduled for hearing was introduced by title and passed on first reading at the regular meeting of the council held on Monday, June the 25th, 2018. It was posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting safety.
I call up Ordinance 41-2018 for second reading and ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $192,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of new vehicles and related equipment for the Public Works Department.
I open hearing for Ordinance 41. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 41-2018.
I'll second that motion.
Any council discussion? Yes, Maureen?
This is just replacement of existing trucks and equipment. We're not buying anything new to us.
Correct. Okay, roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 41-2018 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice there in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now we're on to our second for invitations for discussion. This is when you may comment on any topic, but again, try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but I will give you a 1 minute grace and ask you to stop at 4 minutes. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward and state your name, your address, and write the same on the clipboard.
Kathy Daly, West End Avenue. I just wanted to mention, since we spent so much time talking about parking tonight, one of the things that I'd like to see in Madison for the future is for us to be more accessible for people who have disabilities. I noticed in Lisa's slideshow, the Cook Avenue parking lot has 134 spaces, but only 2 of them are handicapped. According to the New Jersey guidelines for handicap parking, in a lot that size with that many spaces, we really ought to have 5. So I'd like to see that as part of what we talk about when we talk about parking for the future in Madison. People with disabilities often wind up, as we probably all know and have seen in our own families, we often wind up encouraging those people to stay home, or they decide to stay home because they know of all the obstacles that they have to face when they go out to run errands or go see a doctor or just even go out for a cup of coffee in town. That tends to lead to some social isolation for those people who have those disabilities. And that social isolation, that only leads to further physical disability for those people because it takes a toll on their physical health. It takes a toll on their mental health. Statistically speaking, before we reach its retirement age, a quarter of us are going to experience an ambulatory disability. So it affects a lot of people. I just really think we ought to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as with the Cook Avenue parking lot and any other redesigns, that certainly will be a priority. Anyone else wish to be heard? Sandy, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. I'm Sandy Lischieri, and I reside on Greenwood Avenue. I don't have a serious issue about the parking, but I do have a personal issue that I'd like to bring to your attention. As you know, Greenwood Avenue was recently repaved for all of our sidewalks, and the entire length of Greenwood Avenue received new sidewalks in various places. And I'm very grateful to the town for replacing all of the sidewalks in front of my home. The difficulty that I have is that the site work that is surrounding the sidewalk between the area between the sidewalk and the curb was planted with grass seed that really was not grass seed. And in fact, if I may approach the clerk and you, Mayor, I have some photographs that I'd like to share with the committee.
Yeah, if you can finish your comments and then share.
I think it would be effective, Mayor, if you took a look at the photographs, though. I think it would be more helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to just pause the timer for a second. And while you're distributing, we are aware. When I was on vacation and came back in the middle of last week and saw what was at the corner of Greenwood and Britton Street, I'm not too sure if there was any grass seed in there, if it was all weed seed. So that is one of the reasons why we hold a bond and retainer.
The difficulty that I have is that the weeds that are directly in front of my home are now 3 feet high.
Yep.
And by the end of the month of July, you will not be able to see me. I'm certain of it. As they grow, and they keep growing, and they're now interceding onto my front lawn. The greater difficulty that I have also is that my neighbor also had this problem, and she decided to take it upon herself because she had a smaller portion of weed issue. But now I have these weeds that are so extensively going into my front lawn that portions of my front lawn are going to need to be replaced. Now, 2 trees fell during the snowstorm and that they cracked open, and the town was so great, they just completely took care of that in a week's period of time. I contacted the town engineer several weeks ago expressing the difficulty, and it was explained to me that they were holding the check for the people that did that paving work. But that doesn't resolve my problem, which is the weeds continue to grow, and now we're becoming quite offensive. And it's predominantly my area just in front of my home. Now, we're not talking about small amounts of weeds. We're talking about a pretty heavy-duty amount that makes it look pretty unattractive. So I'm hoping that the council will take that into consideration. I contacted the borough engineer several times, and so I've called, I've emailed, I've sent my request, and no one's responded to that. So I'm coming to the board tonight to ask you to take that into consideration.
I'll address it, sorry, and then if there's anything else to add. But Sandy, I apologize you felt the need to come tonight because you didn't feel an answer was coming. We will, Jim Burnett will follow through tomorrow. We'll get right back to you. Bad seed is fairly typical, but I would say this is an extreme I have never seen before. And
it's a flowering plant of some kind.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's not fair for it to wait until the punch list is done, so we'll make it a priority, and we'll be in touch as quickly as possible.
Yeah, recognizing the DPW people of our town are fabulous, and I've never had an issue. I've lived here a very long time, as you know, Mayor, and I've always made a simple phone call, and things have been resolved quite quickly. And I commend the council, and I thank everyone in the community. But this was a bit surprising that nobody responded in over a month's period of time.
I apologize and say.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment, Sandy. I was told about Sandy's problem, and I did talk to Frank Russo this afternoon. He has sent a letter out, and the Midwest, I think it is, that did that paving, is to come out as soon as possible. And I told Frank Russo that he needs to just go there every single day and make sure that this guy is going to show up and take care of it.
The roots are really getting very deep, and it's prickly. It's almost dangerous.
Yeah, we actually try to avoid the back and forth conversation.
I just merely comment to you that it's not simply coming there and just knocking it down. It's now something that's much more embedded in the ground.
And what we've done, and we will look into this as another option, is with some other issues along the time. We brought another contractor in to fix it and charge it back to the contractor for failing to deliver. So if we need to go to that level, we will. But it was
well, I hope I won't see you at the next council meeting.
Yeah, no.
Or at least I hope you will see me.
Yes, and yes. Thank you, Sandy.
Mayor, thank you, council.
Anyone else wishing to be heard, please step forward. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. And we are on to introduction of ordinances.
The ordinance scheduled for first reading has a hearing date set for July the 23rd, 2018. It will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, and made available to members of the public requesting copies.
I call up ordinance 42, 2018 for first reading. I ask the Borough Clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 45 of the Madison Borough Code entitled Shade Tree Management Board to clarify and provide necessary amendments to protect borough trees on construction sites.
Mayor, I move ordinance 42-2018.
I second that.
Any further council discussion? This was part of the agenda discussion. Seeing none and hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda resolutions. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move resolutions R205 through 214-2018.
A second.
And we already read the change to 211 into the record. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Okay, there is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers.
Current fund, $238,751.32. The general capital fund, $191,288.69. Electric operating fund, $118,573.31. Electric capital fund, $18,168 even. Water operating fund, $17,813.44, and the trust, $10,109.15. Total is $594,703.91.
Mr. Mayor, I move the vouchers.
A second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
There is no new business.
Mayor, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
A second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Night, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Good
Thanks,
night.
Ben. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Yep. Yep, I'll sign it. I got to sign that. I'll use that excuse to sign all the others.
Everybody.